A radio station, recently, I heard them say on the radio station, came up with the following. They said, we've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that there's no good news. The good news is we're not going to tell you the bad news. Well, over and over in the New Testament, the phrase good news appears. That is what the word gospel means. It comes from the Anglo-Saxon Godspell, meaning God's story. The phrase good news captured the excitement with which the early Christians felt about the coming of Jesus, caught the excitement that the Ethiopian caught when he was baptized. Unfortunately, many people see the gospel as bad news rather than good. All too often, outsiders say to the church, good news? What is good news? We've not heard any good news. Not only have people outside the church not heard good news, but many in the church have not heard it either. You see, the gospel is bad news when it's seen only as a proclamation of our sinfulness. But the gospel is not about us, but about God and God's love. There is a sense in which we cannot appreciate the good news of the gospel until we have some sense of the human situation. But I have a feeling that we don't need to spend much time dwelling on that. Most people already know it. We are up to our ears in bad news. All we have to do is go on the internet or turn on the radio or listen to the television. What we want to know is, where in the midst of all of this is there any word of hope? That is what we want to know and what we need to know in order to keep going on. Many people see the gospel as a means of increasing guilt. You know, I remember the story of a woman who came to the late Samuel Shoemaker, who was a pastor in Philadelphia, and she told him a sorry tale about her husband's alcoholism. Then she said, "Would you go to my husband and give him hell?" Well, he replied, "No, I won't give him hell. He already has enough of that. What I will do, what my job is to give him heaven." And so it is. The gospel is not bad news about us, but rather it is good news about God's love. In our morning's lesson, Philip overtook a man traveling along in a chariot surrounded by a retinue of servants. The man was what might be called the secretary of the treasury of the country of Ethiopia. He had come over 1,000 miles from North Africa to Jerusalem on a spiritual quest. Possibly while in Jerusalem, he had heard rumors about Jesus, but the stories only confused him, and he turned again home more confused than when he had come. While he was in Jerusalem, he'd found, perhaps for the first time, the Jewish scriptures. And as he rode along, he was reading the 53rd chapter of the book of Isaiah. He was reading aloud when Philip intruded on his meditation and asked him if he understood what he was reading. The man said, "No. Get up here. Sit beside me. Tell me what it's all about." And so Philip climbed into the chariot and told the man the good news about Jesus. What is the good news? Well, Andrew Greeley expressed it this way. He said, "The message is very simple, and through repetition, through the centuries, it has perhaps become trite. But its simplicity and its triteness should not obscure for us the fact that the message responds to the most basic and agonizing question that faces all who are part of the human condition. And the question is this: is everything going to be all right in the end? And the answer is, you bet your life. The good news is there for us, and it is such good news. That's what we have to offer. It's all the church has ever had to offer, but it speaks to our need more than anything else. It is just what we need. No wonder the Ethiopian heard Philip proclaim the good news, and he said, "Stop the carriage." If the good news was true, it demanded immediate action. The good news about Jesus brought this man's life to a screeching halt and starting him off in a whole new direction. Well, what about us? What about us? Are we any different because we have heard the good news? Or have we heard it so often that we have become blasé about it? We must not ever become blasé. So often our lives go on by the sheer force of momentum rather than by conscious thought. We start out in a certain direction and we follow that direction almost automatically. We may be lost, but we're making very good time. For too many of us, the chariot of life has not stopped. The good news hasn't grabbed us. We just keep going in the same direction. But the Ethiopian was not at the mercy of his momentum. The good news brought him his life to a screeching halt and started it out in a whole new direction. Is there any reason why I shouldn't be baptized now, he asked? The answer was no, and so he was. And we read that he proceeded on his journey with a heart that was full of joy. That's what hearing the gospel is supposed to do for us and to us. It is to fill our hearts with joy. So, what about us? Is the gospel good news or is it bad? It's supposed to be good. So good that we simply cannot keep it to ourselves. So let it be for us and for many the good news of Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God. Amen.